I remember having problems with drinking in college. I remember smoking. I remember being raped. Obviously, who could forget that? I remember having a miscarriage. I remember having being scammed out of all my money. Even through all that stuff, all of those horrible things that happened, the thing that I remember the most is that the Lord was there in every last one of those situations. Even though I was running away from him and didn't want really anything to do with him, he always somehow brought me back to him, whether it was my friend inviting me to church, whether it was my cousin having me sit down and do Bible study with her. Eventually, I did rededicate my life to Christ. Since that dedication, everything's really just truly just been in his hands. And I could not be more thankful for everything. Oh my gosh. Sometimes I still feel ashamed, but even when I think about that, I just realize like that shame that I feel it's not me. It's not on me. That's on the cross. That was left on the cross. So I gotta let that go. Hi, my name is Ashley Bohannon. My life before Christ really just consisted of, my family, Christian family. I gave my life to Christ when I was 8, and I really originally only did it because when I was in children's church, we all used to have these red tags if you had given your life to Christ and was baptized. And they used to give kids that were baptized communion, and I had a fear of missing out. So I was like, I want to do that. Like, I don't want to be the only one with a blue tag. So I decided to give my life to Christ, and then they had me do the baptism class. And it wasn't really until I did the baptism class, like truly understanding like what the Lord had did for me. He died on the cross and just took away all my shame, all my sins. And I was like, wow, like this is so much deeper than just having like a red little badge and like eating little crackers and juice. This is really something serious. Like the Lord really just sacrificed himself and so showed me what like love was before I really even understood like how deep that was. I gave my life to Christ when I was 8, but right around the time when I was like 17 or 18, I 100% rebelled against my family, against my faith, pretty much against everything. Really because my mom had gotten in an accident my senior year in high school that caused her to become paraplegic. And I really didn't understand that and was extremely mad with God because my mom was like the most on fire person for Christ that I've ever met in my life. She was really the standard of how my walk with Christ should look for me for the longest time. And I honestly felt like she was like the intercessor for my faith for a long time. And so I was really mad at God because I was like, you're not going to heal her. You're not going to, like, what's the point? Like, and she was married to my stepdad. And when she got in her accident, she was kind of like the barrier between us. And once that barrier was gone, it really just kind of uncovered me and him had no type of relationship, even though he had been in my life since I was 3. So during that time, before I went to college, between, I guess, that 6-month time period, it was just a lot of like verbal abuse back and forth between me and him. I kind of honestly had to fill the role of my mom. And as an 18-year-old, I had no idea how to do that. My family really wanted me to stay at home because of the accident. And I honestly didn't want to. Simply because like when I was there, I just felt like I wanted to kill myself. There was actually several times where I almost ran my car into a fence on purpose. And even though like I was still reading my word, still going to church, still like really active in the church that I was at, I just felt extremely disconnected and alone. So went to church, ended up going to school in August, and just kind of shut everybody out, shut everything out. Growing up, I was really never the person to get into trouble. I liked playing by the rules, so to speak. Not just playing by the rules, but just like, I just wanted to live right. And when I got to college, I was just like, living right didn't help my mom, so I'm just gonna live for myself. First semester, I was pretty good, just was focused on keeping up my grades. But like when I went home, it just felt like I didn't get any type of approval from my dad or stepdad, if you will. My mom just didn't seem like she was getting any better. So I was just like, when I came back to school, I didn't care. I started drinking a lot, excessively, like to the point of being drunk on Tuesdays in the middle of classes for no reason, just because I just wanted to feel or not feel anything. Drinking was my outlet, honestly, probably for a good, I'd say 6 months or until the end of spring semester of my freshman year. Everyone knows when you're in college, like, sex is a part of the deal. Everyone does it, apparently. But that was just part of myself I just wasn't ready to, I guess, give up. My mom and stepdad had always taught me, like, you were bought with the price. Like, don't give yourself up for nothing. You should wait until marriage. And probably towards the end of my freshman year, like, I didn't really care. And so even though I didn't want to do it, there were, temptation was just getting stronger and stronger. So one of the nights when I was a very heavy drinking night for me, when and actually I had almost died because my friend was driving drunk and we were going over a bridge and the car almost went over, but it didn't. So I was like, okay, well, I didn't die, and I was like, okay, I'm fine. So I'm like stumbling upstairs to my dorm, and I ran into this guy that I met at the party. And so he was like, oh, we should hang out. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like, at that point, I had hung out with a lot of different guys, had did nothing more than a kiss anyway. So I was just like, tonight will be no different. And so we go to my room. I'm relaxed. I'm trying to sober up in some type of way, shape, or form. And so he is like, oh, come on, let's do this. I'm like, no, I'm not good. No, I don't want to. Like, I feel sick, da-da-da-da. And then before I know it, he's like throwing me on the bed. Basically, he raped me. And yeah, so I kind of just like ran to my friend's room. Didn't really want to be in my own room. I didn't really tell anybody about it because it's just like, that was kind of like my first like hit where I was like, wow. I feel like my entire freshman year in college, like, the Lord had been keeping me. And my mom used to always talk about this covering that you kind of lose the further and further you get away from your walk with Christ. And I kind of felt like at that point, I kind of broke that seal. So I go to the clinic to just, get myself checked out after I leave my friend's house. And they say I'm fine, nothing, and all the other stuff. Go home for the summer. I'm doing an internship. Don't tell my parents about the rape or anything. I'm kind of the type of person at this point in my life where I'm just running away from everything. Still haven't fully dealt with, like, my mom no longer being this larger-than-life person she was in my life. The summer's getting ready to end. For whatever reason, my stepdad and I, we just did not have a healthy way of communicating with one another. So one of the nights, he gets extremely angry with me, and he punches me in the face. So, like, my mom, she's crying, she's upset. Even though she's, like, paraplegic, she's just, like, screaming, like, Carlos, stop it, get off of her, da-da-da-da. And I had, like, these scars like on my face after it, and it's just like it was bad, like to the point where like I really couldn't go to work the next day. And even when I did kind of partly heal up, I was going to work, and I was just telling them that, like, I fell off a bike and hit my face really bad. So he apologizes. Then I was like, you know what? I'm about to go back to school, so this doesn't matter. Just gonna let it go, move on. Go back to school, and when I think, it's funny, when you think you can't get any lower, you go lower. And so this year, from my sophomore to my junior year, I'm kind of just like raging out. I'm having sex all the time. I'm drinking. Now I've added weed to the pot. Someone did try to get me to start doing cocaine and stuff, but I always used to say, "What if it's white? It's not right." So, not funny, but like, yeah, that was kind of my mindset. So I was like, I'll do green and I'll drink, and that was basically what I did for the next 2 years to block out the pain. Somewhere around that time, right around my junior year, my sophomore year, I stopped going home to my parents. I just stayed up at school. Then my junior year, I just decided to move back to Chicago and then just commute back and forth in between Chicago to school, because I was going to school in Texas. Moved up with my aunt and uncle. And so, right somewhere in between that, I got a boyfriend, and we got pregnant. And that was like right before COVID hit. We found out we were pregnant. And then COVID hit. And everything was shut down, and I was in Texas. And it was like my family and I, my aunt and uncles, we were like talking about how we're going to get her back, because we're not supposed to really be going anywhere. At that point, I wasn't showing in my pregnancy, still not telling anyone about it, because I was honestly in shock. I didn't believe in abortion, but I was just like, there's no way. There's absolutely, like, no way. Even though I had taken, like, a good 4 to 5 pregnancy tests, and I was like, nah, this isn't real. So I talked to my mom, and I just go to stay with them for a bit. At this point, it had been almost like a year and a half to almost 2 years since I had seen my stepdad and my mom. Me and my stepdad, at that point in my life, we just didn't need to be around each other, but we were just always, because we were always in arguments. He always got mad at me about something. I always just thought he was just bugging over nothing. And so one of the nights, he read my diary, and my diary was in the office that me and him would collectively work in from time to time. And so the part of my diary that he read was talking about how I had been raped and how I was like trying to recover from that. And so he was like extremely angry. So it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm asleep. I'm knocked out. Honestly, I was in the first trimester of my pregnancy, and I was pretty much asleep all the time. I was like exhausted. And so he wakes me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and he's just yelling at me. And I'm just like, what are you upset about? And he was like, how could you do this? How could you have sex? We literally told you that your body is like the Lord's temple. How could you defile yourself like this? I was like, what part of my diary did you read? He was like, I read this part. I'm like, if you really finished up completing reading that, you would hear that I've been raped. That's what you would have read. And so he just gets even more angry. And now I know that his anger came from him being mad at himself, and not necessarily me. But up to that point, he really was not good at expressing his feelings. So he is yelling at me, and I'm looking at him just like, I don't really know what you want me to say. Like, you read my diary. I don't know what you expected to read in my diary. And he was like, I was trying to understand you because you make no sense. And I'm like, all you have to do is talk to me if you want me to make sense. And when I said that, he hit me, and it was bad. Like, the first time he hit me, he punched me, and that was it. when he hit me this time, it was like, psh, and then I was on the floor, and it was like kicking, and all I was thinking was like trying to guard my stomach because I'm like, I have not told anybody that I'm pregnant, and I was like, I want this baby. I don't want to lose my baby over whatever he's upset about. He's kicking me, and then he's like, all of a sudden he's just like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? Like, I'm so sorry. And I'm just like, don't touch me. Like, I don't know what's going on with you, but don't touch me. Like, you're like literally acting like you're possessed or something. Over the next couple of weeks, it looks like my pregnancy is still going fine in spite of that. But I really was like, I've been calling my aunt and uncle, like, we need to figure something out. Like, I can't stay here anymore. Like, I told y'all I couldn't stay here. I can't stay here. Like, even though I survived this beating, I'm not going to get beat again. Like, I'm not going to take this again. And so my mom, once again, was like crying, like, we just got you back. Please don't leave. I was like, your tears honestly mean nothing to me right now. I'm leaving. And in my head, it wasn't even that like I didn't care about my mom. It was that I need to get out of here. My family from Chicago just drove down to Texas, and we just went back to Chicago. When I got back to Chicago a couple weeks later, I had a miscarriage. And that that was when that was when I felt really, really a lot of people don't know this, but like when you have a miscarriage, it's like it's like an extremely intense amount of blood. And since my family didn't know that I was pregnant, they didn't know I was having a miscarriage. And you would think, like, how would you not be able to know if it was that much blood? Because the women in my family, we have really heavy cycles. So it's very easy to mask it. But yeah. So after I lost the baby, I told my aunt that I need to go to the doctor. She kept asking me why, and I was just like, I was telling her that wasn't my period, that just happened, that I was having a miscarriage. And she was like, when were you pregnant? Like, what? Like, no one said anything about this. And I was just like, I really don't want to talk about this right now. Can you please just take me to the doctor? So I go to the doctor. Doctor basically tells me everything has been passed and that I just need to take this antibiotic so I don't have any more issues. I was just asking her, like, the doctor, like, how did this happen? Is there something wrong with me? And she was just telling me that miscarriages are actually really prevalent, a lot more prevalent than most people even realize. After that, I went into this very, very deep depression. It was like a black hole, honestly. I really didn't know what to do, really who to talk to. My aunt knew, but I was not going to talk to her. My cousin at the time, my older cousin, she's like a big sister to me. She just started praying with me. And I was just like, I don't really even know why you're praying. Like, God does not listen to me anymore. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, do you not see everything that has happened to me in the last couple of years? Like, God is not listening. And she didn't even know about the miscarriage because my aunt didn't tell anyone. She thought I was, like, depressed because of the situation that had happened with my stepdad, which played a big role as well. She was like, one of these days you're gonna get it. Like, she's like, all this stuff that happened, all these things that have going on. You're saying like God did this to you, right? But if you really think about it, he's been right here like the entire time. You know, you lost your baby. Well, this is what I'm saying to myself. You know, I lost my baby. I kind of essentially lost my parents. School. Oh, gosh, I was doing so bad at school at that point. My advisor told me, she's like, yeah, you might want to consider a 5th year. And I just was like, even though as much as I didn't like her coming over every single day, making me do Bible study with her, the more we did it, the more I realized, I was like, like, the Lord's been right here this entire time. There are like so many situations where I really should have died or something worse should have happened, and it didn't. So even though I was running away from him and I turned my back on him, he's still just been right there with me. Right before I graduated, that was right before I graduated from college. That's when I rededicated my life to Christ. When I first gave my life to Christ, I feel like I came in with like absolutely no baggage whatsoever. But this time around, I had a lot of baggage. And so even though I gave my life back to Christ and I was like very serious about it, and I thank my cousin every day for not giving up on me and really just praying with me and reading our word every single day. When I was 22, obviously, I said I rededicated, and I was in, what was I? I was living between Chicago and Nacogdoches because I was going back and forth between school. And so, graduation was coming up, and I was just like, where am I going? Like, am I going back to Chicago or am I staying here? And, I just remember in the middle of my Bible study one morning, the Lord was like, go back to Dallas. And at that point, I had no one in Dallas. And just for some clarity, like, I was born in Chicago. My family moved to Dallas when I was younger. And then in between, my first year of high school, we moved to Houston. So I hadn't been in Dallas almost 6-7 years almost. And the Lord was just like, I want you to go to Dallas. Okay, cool. Like, I'm going to Dallas. But in the middle of moving to Dallas, all the money I had saved up, I actually got scammed and lost a good half of it. Or not even half of it. I lost all of it. And so moved to Dallas, got an apartment, was in between jobs. So was about to start a job with Kohl's, and that didn't start for a month. And I did not want to work at Kohl's as a manager, but, that's all I had. So literally moved to Dallas with debt because I got ripped off. Don't trust LinkedIn jobs. That's the moral of the story. But it was funny because even though I moved to Dallas and was basically in debt, I had so much peace. It was for the first time there was just stillness. I really felt like I could talk to God and really just grow. The things that the Lord has done for me, since I've moved back here, I was working at Kohl's and I was really just praying, Lord, I went to school to be in HR. I want an HR position. I want to be went to school for. And I just happened upon a job for this company called KPMG, and I had heard of them in school. They're a big financial institution. They had a seasonal position open. And probably right before I started my job at Kohl's, I interviewed with them, and the interview was only 5 minutes long. 5 minutes. Probably the shortest interview I've ever had in my life. And the dude was like, oh, yeah. Lord, yeah, you got the job. a 5-minute interview? You just know I'm the one? He's like, I prayed about this. He's like, I looked over the resumes, I prayed, and the Lord told me, you're the right one for this position. It was like so amazing. Honestly, I couldn't even believe it. Man, this is the company my friends and I used to talk about in college, like, when we weren't drunk. So yeah, it was like, wow, God, like, what? I can't believe this. And then a couple months later, they made me permanent. And I just was like, wow, God, like, the fact that I even graduated on time is like beyond, like, that alone was him. Like, somehow the classes that I needed to retake, the classes that I needed and to do in college, were most of them were available during the summer, and so I was able to take them during the summer and still graduate on time. So I was literally just coming off of the amazement of that, like, wow, Lord, you allowed me to be able to graduate in 4 years, like, what? And then I'm like, turn around, I'm like, oh my gosh, God, like, my dream job? What are you doing? And then he was like, okay, you're here, you got your dream job, I want you to serve in Awana. And I was like, Lord, you know I don't do kids. Like, what? I do not do kids. Like, everybody I know could tell you, like, I do not do kids. I did not at that point. Simply, because, like, it was just too hard. With my miscarriage, just being around kids, it just reminded me of what I lost. And B, I was just too focused on me. Like, I was just like, being with kids just takes away time from me. That's what I was thinking. And so I was like, no, I'm not going to do that, God. I'm not going to do that. Mm-mm. I was still with my boyfriend, still friends with, like, a lot of people from college that really were just, like, a bad influence, even though I rededicated my life to Christ. So after I basically told the Lord no, he just basically started removing all these people out of my life. Like, things started, like, popping off with them, like, yeah, we're not gonna be friends. Like, yeah, we're not gonna be friends. And then the last straw was kind of my boyfriend, who had basically been with me through all of that stuff, was just like, yeah, actually, this isn't gonna work for me anymore. I have my dream job. I'm making it in the city. I'm still just, like, reading my work. And the Lord's like, Ashley, you need to serve with Awana. Like, every day you pray, you ask the Lord, you ask me, what is your purpose? What do you want me to do? I want you to serve in Awana. I want you to, like, he's like, you remember that Awana was, like, the best part of your childhood. I need you to listen and do what I'm telling you to do. Because I was not basically doing what I was called to do, I really got into this, like, cycle of just, like, loneliness. I started, even though I moved to Dallas and everything, for the most part, was, like, really going good. All the friends that I had when I got here, like, they pretty much disappeared. So I went through this period of just, like, being 100% alone. And that was so weird for me because I really had never truly been alone before. I didn't understand it. I didn't really even know how to do it. And being here in Dallas, like, it was just so hard. I remember sitting in a Wednesday service one time, and Crystal, she was talking about the different types of depression, and she was talking about the adjustment period depression, and I was like, that's me. And she was just talking about how, like, a community is the most important thing for different hearts when you're going through times like that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to join Single Life. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. In the process of going to one of my single events and going to church. So I reconnect with them, and they're just like, you should join Awana. I tell you guys, when the Lord gets a hold of you, when he wants you to do something, he's gonna, like, everybody you run into, I feel like it's just gonna annoy you about it. So I feel like for about 2 months, like, I just kept on running to my old Awana leaders. My mom started talking about it. I don't know where she got that from. And so I was just like, okay, fine, Lord, I'm gonna do Awana. I'm gonna do it. So I start doing Awana in 22. And I would say the first day I went, I was like, wow. I was running for this for what again? Why was I running from this again? At first, when I was working with the kids, it was really hurting, a lot. But I'd say probably 2 months in, I think it kind of became the best part of my week, because serving with the kids kind of allowed me to be, in a sense, not really a mom, but it felt like a lot of the kids that I was working with kind of replaced the kid that I lost. So that was comforting for me. But at the same time, I just remember talking to some of the kids, and they're just like, we're so glad that you're here. You're really helping me understand the word from a young person's point of view, and I wasn't really understanding it before. And I was like, wow, really? What? And you don't really see or think that you're making much of a difference. Just being there, just showing up, just following the steps that they tell you to. And but you are, and that was everything. So I loved it. One became the best part of my week. I really feel like working with the church really kind of became an accountability for me to be serious all the time, to look at my life, look at what I'm doing, look at how I live, really just look at the fruits of the Spirit, because fruits of the Spirit is the model for how Christ lived his life and how he wants us to be. And I was like, wow, I got a long way to go. So working here, I really just started getting super, just every day in my word, praying. So honestly, being serious about my walk, it's not just something that I do, it's my lifestyle now, Prior to working at the church, I was one of those type of Christians, I'm a Christian, I read my word, I come to church on Sunday. I think Tony Evans will call them Sunday Christians. I was doing that, and working here really just showed me you cannot be a Sunday Christian. Not simply because of the people that you're with and they're on a different level with your walk with Christ, but the kids, they need so much from you. And if you are not in your word, if you are not actively seeking, if you are not thirsty and hungry for more of what the Lord has for you, you're going to burn out. You're going to burn out like that. And I did kind of burn out a couple different times. And so when that did happen, when those burnouts happened, I really just had to reassess and be okay, how much am I really giving to my faith? I'm here, I'm working, but if I'm not giving anything to my faith, if I'm not having anything pour into me, and I'm not eating myself, I'm just basically starving myself, With everything that I went through, all the trials that I went through, what I really came to learn was that even though times are going to get tough, trials are going to be rough and everything, I had to remember the little miracles that God performed throughout all the trials, because he really did. In every time point in my life, which the last 4 to 5 years really felt like an entire trial, there were always little miracles. I'd either start doing well in school, or I got a job. The amazing part about that entire time, the Lord always provided for me financially. There were many times where I really felt like I should have been homeless, but I was never homeless at any point. And that was simply because of the blood of Christ, truly. So for anyone that is out there that is struggling, don't focus on the big stuff and the big storm in front of you. Like, the big storm will have you thinking that you're never going to get out of it. Focus on the little miracles each day. It could be something as simple as you have something to eat, you have a job, you have people that care about you. Continue to read your word and pray. You'll get out. You'll look up and you'll realize the sun is out.